Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and completely bust a massive engineering myth. There's this super persistent idea that if your distributed database starts choking, you just throw more servers at it, right? I mean, it sounds totally logical. Out of capacity? Buy more capacity. But today we're going to look at a highly realistic system we'll call AtlasDB and see exactly why that assumption totally falls apart at scale and what actual data placement looks like in the real world.
So, imagine you're running a massive global platform. Let's call it Streamlab. Out of nowhere, a celebrity video goes absolutely viral. Traffic spikes through the roof, and suddenly your database starts melting down. Alerts are going off everywhere, latency is climbing, queries are timing out. But you check your dashboard and you actually have plenty of total capacity across the cluster. You panic, you add 10 brand new expensive storage nodes, but the meltdown just keeps going. Why? Why did adding servers do literally nothing to fix this?
Well, the answer is in the metrics, and the contrast is wild. You've got Node A sitting pretty at 28% CPU. Node B is at 31, Node C is at 29. But Node D? Node D is absolutely screaming at 97%. The problem isn't a lack of overall cluster capacity. The problem is that millions of comments and views are hammering one specific key prefix. That viral video? It lives on Node D. So every single request is slamming that one server, while the rest of your cluster is just sitting there twiddling its thumbs.
Which brings us to a crucial takeaway. Equal storage absolutely does not mean equal traffic. A database can look perfectly balanced if you're just counting bytes. Maybe every single node has exactly 10 terabytes of data on disk. Cool. But the system can still crash and burn if one node is taking all the read and write heat. Throwing 10 new nodes at the problem changes exactly 0 things if every single user is still targeting that one overloaded leader.
Section 1. Storage, Requests, and Leadership. To fix a bottleneck like this, we've got to totally expand our mental model of what a balanced distributed system actually looks like.
Because you see, it's not just about slicing up gigabytes. A healthy database has to continuously juggle 3 completely different dimensions all at once. First, there's storage, literally how many bytes are on each node. Second is requests, the actual number of reads and writes a node is processing. And third, which is super easy to forget, is leadership. That's the heavy CPU burden of coordinating write order and processing strong reads. A node might have barely any data on it, but if it's the leader for hundreds of highly active partitions, its CPU is going to get completely crushed.
Okay, Section 2, Splitting and Merging Partitions. Let's see how the database actually fights back.
When adjusting its layout to divide the workload, the database hits a massive catch depending on what kind of hotspot it's dealing with. If it's a hot range, like a big chunk of active user accounts, AtlasDB can just automatically split that range in 2 and ship half to a different server. Problem solved. But what if it's a hotkey? If everyone is hitting a single indivisible record, like one specific view counter on our viral video, splitting the database won't do a thing. You can't split a single record. Fixing a hotkey requires actual application-level redesigns, like caching or batching writes.
But let's flip it around. What happens when the viral event finally ends? If the database frantically splits partitions during a massive traffic spike, you end up with thousands of tiny, abandoned partitions when the hype dies down. If you just leave them there, the system will eventually drown in metadata and coordination overhead. So AtlasDB actually merges those adjacent, cold partitions back together to keep the whole system lean and efficient. It cleans up after itself.
Moving on to Section 3, Moving Replicas Without Downtime.
All right, so once we've figured out how to split our data, we hit the next major engineering hurdle, physically moving these replicas to idle nodes without taking the entire database offline. And before we move anything, we have to know where it's actually safe to put it. As an architect, you absolutely never want all copies of your data sitting on the same physical server rack. Why? Because one bad network switch or a single power outage wipes out all your copies at once. So the database intelligently spreads replicas across independent failure domains, different hosts, racks, availability zones, or even entirely different geographic regions.
To pull off this data move seamlessly while thousands of users are actively writing to it, the database runs through a very delicate 5-step sequence. First, it adds the new node as a non-voting learner. Next, it copies over a live, consistent snapshot of the data. But hey, while that massive snapshot is copying, new writes are still pouring in. So step 3 is streaming those newer log entries over to the destination. Once that new node completely catches up, it gets promoted to a voting member, and only then is the old replica safely deleted.
Which brings us to Section 4, Surviving the Rebalancing Storm.
Now, you might be thinking, awesome, problem solved. We can split data, we can move it safely. But What if I told you that our attempts to fix the system could actually cause the exact outage we're trying to prevent? See, when you add new nodes, the temptation is to rebalance the data immediately. You've got all this shiny, empty hardware just sitting there. But aggressive rebalancing is incredibly dangerous. Copying terabytes of data eats up the exact same network bandwidth, CPU, and disk I/O that your live user traffic desperately needs right that second. Move too fast, and your user queries will literally start timing out.
And that can trigger a terrifying feedback loop called a rebalancing storm, or a cascading failure. Picture this: one node fails. The system detects it and instantly kicks off a massive surge of repair traffic to replace the missing data. But pulling all that data completely overloads the surviving nodes, so they fail, which creates even more missing data, which triggers a much bigger repair surge. The database essentially crushes itself trying to heal. It is literally an architect's worst nightmare.
So here is the golden rule you have to remember. Fast repair is not always safe repair. The overarching engineering principle here is all about priority. Saving data from immediate loss, what we call durability repair, takes absolute priority. If you're down to your last copy of a partition, you move it right now. But purely cosmetic balancing, like moving data just because node A is at 40% disk usage and node B is at 30%, that has to wait its turn in a strict cooldown period.
And that perfectly sets up Section 5, the continuous control loop.
To manage all this chaos, prevent the database from self-destructing, and keep a massive, shifting system stable, Atlas DB relies on a continuous, safety-first control loop. It observes cluster health, evaluates hotspots, and plans out the moves. But crucially, and this is the secret sauce, it checks a strict budget. It asks, do I actually have the network bandwidth to safely execute this move right now? If yes, it executes, verifies the move, and then enforces that cooldown period so it isn't just rapidly bouncing data back and forth. And this brilliantly sums up our core takeaway today. Placement is a continuous, budgeted control loop, not a perfect static optimizer. A production-level distributed database doesn't just blindly chase perfect mathematical balance on a spreadsheet. It relies on strict budgeting, delayed reactions, and prioritizing user traffic above all else to keep operations fundamentally safe.
So, we've moved our data safely across the cluster, balanced our hotspots, and totally avoided a network storm. But I want to leave you with this one provocative thought. We know where the replicas live now, but how exactly does the system guarantee that data actually survives if a leader crashes mid-transaction? Like, when a user clicks buy, how do multiple independent machines perfectly agree that the write happened? Think about it. We'll leave that hanging for you to ponder until next time.